say I don't even know where to start. But I will tell you, first of all, on the way here today, I just went through the Cape Coral Bridge, and my wife was helping me. We looked around, and I said, "Do you see my jacket?" She said, "No, I left it at home." And I was right, I had just paid the toll, and she said, "Well, turn around and get us." I said, "You can't turn around where I'm at on this bridge." So I came down, and we went a block away. My law office that I'm affiliated with is having a grand opening today. So we stopped there, and I walked in with my shirt, my suspenders, and no coat, and I see my partner, Mike Noon, and I said, "Mike, I like that jacket." So this belongs to Mr. Noon, and, but it does, it works, it does a purpose. I want to tell you a few things first, a little history, and then get into meat of what I'm going to talk about. When I got out of law school, got out of the Army, came here to practice. I practiced uptown, and I practiced in the Cape. There were very few lawyers in the Cape. And I was down the street next to a man in real estate named Pete Petrie. I don't know if any of you were here or remember him, but he was there, and the divider was in the middle of the road with little trees. And Pete put in the Gulf American building was on the other side. They'd fly everybody in to sell them real estate. Pete Petrie put a sign up. It says, "Petrie Real Estate." And Gulf American come put trees in front of it, made it higher. And then he got a bigger sign. And they got bigger trees. And this went on. And he would go, well, he'd do one thing that I didn't take advantage of, unfortunately. I didn't have much work in the afternoon. I was a prosecutor in the morning. I'd come over the bridge, go to Lombardo's, get a sandwich, and come here. It was just right down the street. He had very small real estate practice, because Gulf American had it all. And they would hold events at night at the Rose Garden, way down this end. And he would have to buy tickets to go in just as a paying customer. And he'd bring all his staff and realtors and whatnot, and we'd spread out through the audience to talk to people, to tell them, you can get a better deal down here with Pete Petrie. And he could do a deal for you. And on those days when we had no clients, he'd come knock on my door. We're right next to each other. And he says, "I'll show you something." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, look, I got this lot. You can put a sailboat on it. It's got a dock." He said, "Person doesn't want it, you can get it for $50 a month." I looked at it and I said, "Pete, man, nobody gonna ever live down there." So I missed a lot of golden opportunities, let me tell you. I thought you're supposed to tell a few funny things before you get into the speech. That's what they taught me. And I want to tell you the very first day that I started to practice law. And it was just private practice. We had a place uptown called the Snack House. And that's where everybody went. And my boss was an attorney, he's still alive, Frank Pavis. He was my cousin. And when I got out of law school, I asked him if I could work for him, and he said, "I don't have any positions." Well, I wasn't married, and I was living at home with my mom and dad, and I told Frank, "I'll work for nothing." So he said, "I'll give it a try." And he took me, and after a while, he felt sorry for me and started to pay me. But on my first day, he says, "Join me in the Snack House." So we go in, and they had coffee, and he's sitting with the sheriff, Snag Thompson, and the judge, Tommy Shands. He was a county judge. I knew these gentlemen by reputation. I knew their faces and names, I had never sat with a judge or a sheriff or anybody. And so we're talking, I don't know what to talk about, we're just sitting there talking. Got up, time to go, and when you go out of the snack house, there was a little cashier place and you paid your money. And behind it were the restrooms. And I had to go to the restroom. So I went in the restroom and I'm in there and I said, I got a problem. I don't see any urinals in here. I was in the ladies' room. And then I'm trying to figure how I get out without getting noticed. So I kind of stayed in there. Pavis told me later, he said, I wondered what you were doing in the ladies' room. Anyway, I came out as quietly as I could, and I don't think anyone noticed me. We paid the bill, and I'll never forget, the sheriff turned around to Frank Pavis, and he said, that's one damn smart lawyer you got coming with you. And that's how I started my career. I was with them for some time, and they gave me my first case. And I had to go to LaBelle. And Bill Shields was the attorney, and he told me, you can't lose this, nothing to it. He says, you go there, you'll see your client. I said, well, what's he look like? He said, well, I don't know, I've never seen him, but he'll be there. And Bill said, it's simple, here's the questions you ask him. And it was a child custody something. He said, but you'll find them. Well, when I got to LaBelle, there was only about 100 people outside the courthouse because there was a lawyer over in Moorhaven whose specialty was uncontested divorces. Back then, you could fight over divorces. And he only handled divorces from West Palm Beach because people there didn't want their names in the paper of the divorces. So the courts worked something out where when you went to court, he was first. He'd come once a month and he'd have about 50 clients. I happened to get there the month he had 50 clients. And there's women and men, and I can't find this guy that I'm supposed to represent. I finally found him. I talked to him. I asked him these 5 questions we had written out. I walk in the courtroom, and this happened. I walk in, there was a judge on the bench, and his name was Harold Smith. And as I walked in, he says, Counselor, what time is it? Look at that clock. What time is it? And I looked and I said, it's 1:30, Your Honor. He said, look again. I looked and I said, it's 25 seconds after 1:30. He said, that's correct. Next time, $25 or 25 days. And I was scared. I forgot to add, on the way to LaBelle, I was in my brand new car, first car I ever bought. From Al Gallman, it was a blue, it was a GTO, 4 on the floor, it was magnificent. And down on First Street, as I'm driving to LaBelle, somebody pulls into Dean Street, which is one way, backs up, hits my car, right on the side. And back then the law was you had to leave your name, you couldn't leave the scene. I said to the guy, here's my ticket, I'm a lawyer, you just call me, I gotta be out of here, I gotta get to LaBelle. So now I'm driving to LaBelle and the door won't close because he jarred it. So I got the window down, I'm driving to LaBelle. I go there, find my client, judge is gonna put me in jail. I talk to the client, he gives me all the answers, put him on the stand. He doesn't say the same thing on the stand that he just told me outside. And I went through it. I couldn't go up and talk to him. I asked the questions again, and I got the same answers. When it was all over, I went outside and I said, wait, we lost a case. It's this case that nobody could lose. And I said to him, what did you do? We went over this. He said, I wasn't under oath when I was talking to you. So I learned something there. And all the way home, I'm thinking, I don't think I want to do this for a living. This was too hard of a day. So that's kind of how I started out with my very first trial, or first case. Well, what I want to talk to you about is something that a lot of people don't know, a lot of you may know. Who all, is anybody, well, I know Mr. Beck, anybody here in the early 70s? All right. I had an assistant by the name of Eugene Berry. He worked in Punta Gorda. Gene was, he came here, I don't really know what year, don't remember. But he was divorced, and he was coming to put his child in school. And when he went to the school, he met a secretary there. It turns out she had been divorced. And boom, they hit it off right away. And they got married. And Gene, at that time, he was not a lawyer. He had just got his GED, and he had told his wife he wanted to be a lawyer, but he didn't do anything about it. And she said, "You just talk a lot. Do it. You got to do it, do it." And he went off to Louisiana, and I'm not sure what school, I don't remember now. But anyway, he became a lawyer. That was his life dream. And he went over to West Palm Beach, and that's where he worked for State Attorney David Bloodworth. Anyway, he became prosecutor. And I needed a prosecutor in Punta Gorda, and I got with and I hired Jim. And he became an awesome prosecutor. He loved it. And he was tough on drugs. He became an expert. He lost a few cases on the way, but he became very good. He was a quick learner. And he was likable. He was just a great guy. On January 16th, I wrote down 1982, he, in his house on Peace River in Charlotte County with his wife, Trudy. She was reading a book. His doorbell rang. He went to answer it, opened the door, and someone put 6 shots in him. And they killed him. He died instantly. We had no idea who did what, why, nothing. All that Trudy could remember or knew, she said, I can just tell you from his voice that I think he was talking to a woman.
And his tone of voice was such that I knew it was a woman. You just know that. And that was all. That was the only word spoken.
And that he knew this person. She said he didn't say much, hi or how are you, something. But she said, that's the impression I got. So that's where we started this investigation, with that premise that it was a woman. Gene was the first prosecutor to be killed in America in about 50 or 60 years prior to the time he got killed. We were a very small office. This was a small town, small community. We had done a lot of cases, but never investigated a case that big. And you didn't know how to do it. Well, we didn't know how to do it. And every prosecutor in the state lent me an investigator. Nearly every sheriff in the state gave me an investigator.
The state attorney, Joe D'Alessandro, was informed that one of his prosecutors had been shot. He rushed to the scene with his chief investigator, Ralph Cunningham. Berry's supervisor, Donald Pellecchia, also rushed to the scene. Together, the 3 men decided that the state attorney's office would take over the investigation.
If a police officer gets killed, the police will turn over every stone on earth. We want to catch the person that killed him. I had a prosecutor killed, thought the same way. I want to catch the person that killed him.
My wife knows it now, but she didn't know it then. Every prosecutor who was married, there was a police officer outside their house for a year and a half every night to make sure those wives were safe. Every sheriff donated someone. That was his job. They never knew it, That's what we did. So we're trying to figure out, how do you investigate something like this? And every investigator has an opinion. They all know it. So we got help from two places. You remember Charlie Manson? Well, they wrote, Charlie Manson was prosecuted by a man named Vincent Bugliosi, saying it wrong, in 1970. And in 1974, he wrote a book called Helter Skelter. And in that book, they laid out what all those agencies, you had LA Sheriff's Department, San Francisco, big ones, what they did. But because they had to do a tremendous investigation. We didn't have computers then. You couldn't get all this stuff you can get now. We could probably solve the Eugene Berry case in 3 days, but we couldn't then. So I read that. He had a co-author named Kurt Gentry, and he wrote autobiography of J. Edgar Hoover, and forgot the man's first name, Powers, who was a U.S. spy, the U-2.
Gary Francis Powers.
Yeah. And so that book had a lot of information about investigating things that he hadn't, all this. But that gave us the background. And we had a room, big room, with all these people, and you're trying to gather evidence. You don't even know what you're looking for. So here's some of the things that, did any of you see the movie, The Day of the Jackal? The old movie, Day of the Jackal. And they were looking for the man that was supposedly going to kill Charles de Gaulle. And in France, you saw this movie every morning, all over France. These policemen on bicycles would go up to these motels, because they were in homes and two-room hotels or whatnot. And they would get the registration cards from the night before of people that were staying here. And when you saw the movie, they had hundreds of people in these rooms, police officers, putting together all the information they've got. They got a lot of information, but they don't know what they have, because you got to put it together. And I've always thought of that when I think of what we had to do. And you got to coordinate that. You've got to have somebody find out what his little group is, what they found, then he's got to meet with other people to put it together, etc. And it was a long thing. Here's some things we had to do. I wrote them down so I've got it right. We pulled between Naples, Florida, we didn't do the East Coast, from Naples to Tampa, the records from every cab company that there was. Every plane that landed from Tampa, Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples, and we didn't do Miami. We just cut off, figured that would just be horrendous. If someone was going to land here, most likely they'd be from one of there. We pulled the parking lot tags. Most of you may not know what that is, but you go to parking lot and pay, you're going to keep your car there a day, 2 days, or whatever. They have people that go around after 2 or 3 days, see what cars are there, and they're in their little golf carts, and they write down the license numbers. So there's records there. We pulled the database from every payphone that existed in this area, because you could trace who they called or the number they called. That was it. And we pulled every motel record. We had tons and tons and tons of paper. And we were just guessing we were in the right place. And we didn't know. Well, make a long story short, with time, things started as you're looking and you see numbers and you get together and someone says, well, I heard that number. And after a while, you start finding out you didn't know what you had, but a lot of phone numbers go to this one. Oh, I saw this address 2, 3, 4 times somewhere. Took a long time to do that, a long time. And we start focusing in on Kentucky. saw a lot of stuff coming from Kentucky. We sent people to Kentucky. If you want, there's a book that you can read. It's called The Bluegrass Conspiracy. It's written by a person named Sally Denton. She was a reporter then for a Kentucky paper. We went up, she helped us, and we learned, I mean, there were drug operations in Kentucky that unbelievable, and they were all connected in some way with Gene's murder. People that were involved in it. Their Department of Law Enforcement, like we have a Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they had a Kentucky department. I mean, by the time we left and did the investigation, there were people getting fired left and right in Kentucky. But we still didn't know exactly what happened. We found out the gun that killed Eugene Berry, that was given to Bonnie Kelly. That gun came from the aid of the Speaker of the House in Kentucky. That's in the legislature. And we got him prosecuted. We went ahead and prosecuted the person that killed Gene. And we got him prosecuted the day before the statute of limitations ran out. And the feds had to do that. I had no jurisdiction there. But we gave them the information. They called a federal grand jury, and we indicted this man the day before the statute of limitations ran. This was some years after we had convicted Gene's killer. So one of the things we did, we figured, I don't know why he died, but it had to do with some case he had. That's all we could figure. Someone was trying to stop him from doing something or revengeful for something. And what it was he had prosecuted a man named Kelly. Turns out he was the husband of Bonnie who killed him. And he had another case coming up. And she figured if they killed him for that one, he wouldn't get prosecuted because the prosecutor's dead. He's got all the information. And Eugene Berry got killed for that reason. One of the things that she had done that we learned later and learned at that point, and I'm telling you all these records and numbers, cars, and motel records, she had been coming here very often. Her husband had been convicted. She was coming here, plane flights. She would bring people. She had people assist her, drive her places. We got them all finally. But because she had come here many times, when we got that information, we were able to put the case together. And she's still in prison today. She's still there. When we were in trial, you get shocks. You see it now on TV. They have these TV shows where they have jury consultants. And these guys tell you how to pick a jury, guys or women. It doesn't make any difference. And that was the first time I ever had a case. It was two of them I've had. That's the first one where the defense hired jury consultant, help you pick the jury and do your trial. And we went into court this one day. We're in LaBelle. Bonnie Kelly was a good-looking lady. And this is the day I'm going to put my witness on to identify her. And so she's sitting here, there's a railing here, the judge is there, and in a chair behind me is her sister, who I knew she had one, but I'd never seen her. And her sister was like a twin, and they were both dressed the same way. I knew what they were doing, but I couldn't stop them or get the woman out, and they waiting. If my person identified the wrong one, they had a problem. Anyway, it all worked out, identified the right person. And we won the case. Oh, one other fact you'll find this interesting. One of our witnesses about the gun was Bonnie. She had a younger sister, and she didn't want to help us. Well, she did at first, but then she didn't. We didn't have witness protection programs then. You didn't have a place you could put witnesses, no one bothered them. So we had this young girl, and she would stay, with their permission, in my investigator's house with their wives. She stayed in Ralph's house first. That's the first place. And we kept her up, fed her, you know. I think now there's so many things they can get a prosecutor in trouble for doing that, I'm telling you. But anyway, that's what we did. And the day she came to trial to testify, she wasn't good. She changed her mind. And the judge was Judge Adams, and he was going to hold her in contempt. He did. He put her in jail for not testifying. Kept her there most of the day, and then he called us together. He said, look, she's not going to testify. I can keep her there in jail for 30 days. I'm not going to do that. So I'm letting her go. She's a young girl. I'm not doing that. So she went. We go with the case, go on with it. And Bonnie goes to prison. Mike, her husband, we convicted him, sent Jerry Brock down, from great lawyer from Naples, and tried him, convicted him. And he's in prison. Bonnie's in prison. Mike divorces Bonnie and marries her little sister, who would not testify. He took his case up on appeal, won it, brought it back for a new trial. We lost it. He walks. And he's now walking, married to Bonnie's sister, and she's in jail. You can't write a script like that. But the part of the story that most people don't know is Trudy Berry, his wife. She was, they hosted her all across America because of what she went through, and he being the first prosecutor killed in this country in a long time. And we got a call one day from the governor, and it was Bob Graham. And we went up to the state capitol, went up with Trudy. Governor wanted to see her, and we went into the governor's mansion, and he talked to her, gave her his condolences. The trial was over at this stage, and he told her, he said, I want to tell you something. I got a bill passed in the legislature that any member of the Eugene Berry family can go to any state college in this state free. And so that was a great thing. Trudy, who did not have a GED, got her GED, then went to Edison College. Then for the last 2 years, I think she went to the University of Florida. She did. And then she got into University of Florida Law School. She became an attorney. She came back home. I hired her as an assistant prosecutor, and she sat in the chair that Gene sat when he ran the office in Ponteglada. It was awesome. I get teared up when I think of that. She's still alive. I see her about once a year. We talk a lot. She's a tough lady. After she left me, she worked, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And then she went to work for the sheriff in Charlotte County. And she worked there until she retired. But most people don't know what she went through. But that's the ending in the Eugene Berry story. And I don't get to tell it very often. But I thought it'd be appropriate to share it with you all. So that's what I wanted to tell you. And, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I see, as she was introduced before, Amira, the young lady out there who's going to be a prosecutor for a long time. And she knows. There she is. She's standing. Look at her. My wife corrected me. I said prosecutor. She's the state attorney. Well, that's a prosecutor. But she's learned and will learn all the trials and tribulations. It's a tough job. And your job as a prosecutor is not only to prosecute the guilty, but you got to do justice. And you may have someone that you know did it. Your experience tells you they did it. But but the facts don't bear it out. You can't prove it. And you gotta not prosecute people who you know did a crime. And that's a tough decision. And I'll leave you with one that just popped in my head, where they used to we had someplace out in North Fort Myers, East Fort Myers. They used to have a program, if you're going on vacation, tell your neighbor, tell the cops you're going, they'll come around your house and check it, your neighbors will check it. And this happened in East Fort Myers. And they caught a man, someone called in and said, there's someone in this house. No one's supposed to be there. They called the cops and they sent 2 officers. One had a dog, and the other officer didn't have a dog. He said, I'll do the front door. You go in the front with the dog, I'll go to the back. So the officer out front knocks, says, police officer, got a dog. I'm warning you, this dog, we're coming in. And they're coming in, and the burglar's in the house, and he goes out the back window, right into the hands of the police officer who's in the back. Came out the bathroom window. But TV has taught everybody that cops do everything, that they don't mess up. It was such an open and shut case. I heard him, the guy comes out, police officer testifies, I saw him coming out, I grabbed him, etc. Guy goes to trial. He said, well, yeah, he grabbed me, but I wasn't coming out. He said, I was just over at the house. I was relieving myself outside the house. That was his defense. But the police did not. I got beat over the head because they said you didn't take fingerprints. You could have proved the guy was coming out of the house. If you didn't know, no one presented prints on the window. No one ever thought of doing it. They thought it was open and shut. Anyway, he walked. They believed, the benefit of the doubt, I don't know what, it was stupid defense to me, but it worked. So he got off. So a lot of times, you have to sometimes not prosecute because you can't make the case. And sometimes you prosecute and make the case and you still lose them because something happens. And they happen in every case. Anyway, that's it. I thank you. I had a great time and I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
If you have questions out there, please put
I have a
the topic really
comment.
quick.
Okay. I want to say to you, Mr. D, as we fondly call you, thank you so much for giving me my opportunity. For those of you who don't know this, Mr. D hired me in 1990 to be a prosecutor, and so I thank you. I hope I can follow in your very great footsteps.
Oh, you will exceed those. You will exceed.
Yes, sir.
Was Pete Petrie originally a pilot for Gulf America? Is that when I heard that name?
I don't know. He may have been. I don't know. He had his real estate here. It was a long time. Whether he was a pilot, I don't know.
Okay.
Anybody in the Cape who had a business worked for Gulf America at some point in time. I believe, but it was a different place. They never thought this was going to go anywhere. That's why, for law enforcement, well, now you got GPS and you can figure all this stuff out. But if someone called in a crime and a police officer had to go, he could say Southeast 47th Terrace and you can't get there. Because you go down this road and there's a canal and you got to go 2 miles over, back this way or back that way. It was really a difficult place to get around. Because they just built it and put a canal here, do this, do. They didn't think it was going. They were selling this place, figured it won't fly. It did. Became what it is, fastest growing city in America. Mm-hmm. It's really big. It's something to be proud of, and it's got a lot of history. Not old history, but it will one day. It's got history. Thank you.